Welcome to the greatest podcast in sports betting entertainment. My name is Tanner Kern, certified G, bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. In this right here, this is G Money Grant Mitchell. We are here breaking down the dark horses to make a run in the NCAA tournament, the final four picks, everything you need to know about bracketology, and you can't teach that. Bada boom, man, the people in the room. G Money Grant Mitchell, how you doing?
I'm doing very good, Tanner. We're recording a little bit earlier than usual, but all that means is I got more energy. I'm ready to give it to a great show. It's March Madness. Madness is in the name. In my opinion, I love the World Cup, but the group stage matches can still drag on sometimes. So I'm going to say March Madness is the best postseason event in professional sports. Well, I guess it's not professional, but in major sports.
That's hard because I think people look at this as the greatest betting time of the year because you have all the games and all the options. It's still not my favorite postseason event. I love it. Don't get me wrong. But from a viewership standpoint, I'd rather watch football. I'd rather watch the college football playoff. Even though we get less options, I get a little more juiced up about this. But don't get me wrong. The lull between Super Bowl and now, like I'm ready for something exciting to bet on. We just haven't necessarily gotten that. Conference tournaments a little bit. College basketball, big games at night a little bit. But this is just probably one of the best betting times of the year for me, but not the favorite.
The issue I would take with the NFL playoffs, like you said, is we get games 1 or 2 days out of the week. And in that first round, a lot of the time we already know what's going to happen. I'm not saying we don't usually expect the one to beat the 16, but every once in a while you get a UMBC. You get a St. Peter's beating Kentucky. You get a Florida Gulf Coast beating, I believe it was Georgetown that year. Could be wrong on that. Fact check me. But point being, in the NFL, like if we go to last year's bracket, if the Steelers beat the Bills, would we have really gone that crazy? The Commanders beat the Bucks. Was that a huge upset? No. So I think purely on the shock factor alone that you can get in that first round, that gives the edge to March Madness.
Commanders, Lions, big shock factor. NFL playoffs. That
was the second round. Yeah, second round.
Divisional round. That one was the big shock factor. We get that a lot though in the NCAA tournament because anything can happen. That's the great thing about basketball or football. And we've talked about it. A team can enforce their will on somebody for 60 minutes. Usually the better team's going to win. 7-game series in the NBA, better team's usually going to win. Hockey, a little different. Anything can happen there. But in college basketball, we're talking about 18 to sometimes 26-year-olds in the current climate of NIL, but we're talking that 18 to 22 range of kids, and anything can happen. Any kid can get hot. We can get the Doug Edwards all the time. Like that happens consistently night after night. And that's what makes it so exciting. However, there's a lot of parlay busters in the NCAA tournament, which makes it hard to bet.
Very random side note here, but because I am in a new spot, I wanted to ask you this question because I have found it so helpful. Have you ever really gone out of your way to focus on your cable management at your desk?
Not really. No, I got cables all over the place.
See, I bought some of those little guards, the plastic rectangle things. You feed them through and you can stick them onto the back of your desk. It has helped so much. It feels cleaner. And I know what my setup looks like. I've got lights over here. I got a monitor here, laptop, cameras, chargers, microphone, everything all over the place. It has just helped it so much. So if anybody's out there and they've got the huge clutter of wires, I highly recommend. You can get these things for like $10 on Amazon.
We should get a show sponsor.
Like from Amazon?
Amazon be great. I'm not asking for Bezos. Yeah, I'm just like wire covers. Come sponsor us.
Yeah, we'll take anything.
All right. Before we talk about sponsors and all the sponsors we have on the show and WSN.com, first off, Grant, I got a question for you. What is the best betting month of the year? I know we talked about best betting event, but is it March or is it September, October, November? What are you thinking?
I think I'm going to have to go with October because I believe that's when we had the sports equinox, is it not?
Yeah, we got everything there.
Yeah, you got the MLB postseason, you got the NFL, or the NFL is probably like a month in. You got the NBA, you got college football. Maybe there's some fights going on. I would say that's the time of year.
You know what though? I agree with you. I love October. I love the fall. I love football season and everything, and then adding all the other sports in. But I know when we talk about, like, everyone talks about the sports equinox like it's a big deal. How many people actually watch NBA and NHL on the sports equinox day? Like, you're locked in on football. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and if there's extra time in the day, you're pushing something. You can't get them all.
No, definitely not. But anyways, Grant, this show is presented by WSN.com, the World Sports Network. Tell the people why they not only got to subscribe to the show, but that's a given. That they should have already done that, but why they need to visit WSN.com.
Yeah, well, like Tanner said, please hit that subscribe button. The subscriber number is going up. We appreciate it, but we want more, and we want you to be a part of our community. So go ahead and click that button. But like he said, go to WSN.com, the World Sports Network, if you are into sports betting in any shape, especially with March Madness coming up. I know the sports books are going to have some special deals cooking up, so you can go to WSN.com. You're going to get your promo codes, bonus bets to give you more betting opportunities during the tournament. You're also going to get to gauge the thoughts of myself, Tanner, and other experts on the team. We're going to be sharing our betting picks. We're going to be looking at futures picks. We're going to break down individual matchups. And this isn't just exclusive to March Madness. This is the MLB is about to start. The NBA is going on. All of that great stuff within the sports betting world, you will find it at WSN.com. So go check it out right after you hit that subscribe button.
Go smash that subscribe button. That's the bottom line because Grant said so. All right, so let's talk a little NCAA tournament today, Grant. First off, I want to start hot. I want to come right into it and say who is winning the NCAA tournament right now. We're in the middle of conference tournaments, but I want you to give me like 3 picks of your top dogs that you're looking at to bet to win the whole thing.
Okay, well, first things first. It's boring. It is boring, but the number 1 seeds usually make the final 4. I did an analysis on it recently. I actually forget what it was, but I think it was more than 50% of 1 seeds do make the final 4, or is right about 50% or so. So just from a mathematical perspective, like in the NFL, if you ask me who's going to win the Super Bowl right now, and I say the Chiefs, you can come back to me and say, well, the Chiefs just got blown out and they're losing these players and they haven't really signed anybody in free agency and some of their draft picks haven't hit. It's like, yeah, but they've been in 7 straight AFC championship games. Just mathematically speaking, the Chiefs give me the best chance. So if you're going to come to me with a number 1 seed, I don't have the right to call you boring. I have to say that's probably the right pick to make. And if you're looking for the right pick to make, I don't see how it's not Duke. They have the highest point differential in the country. They have a top 10 offense. They shoot about 38% from 3. They've got the best player in college basketball. They're great on defense. They can lock down the interior. 1 seeds are going to get upset. Sure, it happens all the time. But if you're just asking for the highest floor pick, it's the favorite. It's Duke.
Yeah, Duke, Auburn, Florida, Houston, the projected 1 seeds right now. I'd agree with you. I haven't watched a ton of Duke this year just because they blow everybody out. I've watched a lot more Auburn. I like what Janae Broome can do. And I think when you go back to earlier in the season when they beat Alabama on the road, now Alabama came back and beat Auburn at Auburn. But at the same time, too, that was a marquee win for them. And in the moment, I'm like, wow, this Auburn team's really that good. And I do think they are. I mean, I would put them second behind Duke right now. They're second behind Duke in all the advanced numbers and Ken Pom and everything when you're looking at what it takes to win a national championship. But when they beat Alabama at Alabama in Tuscaloosa, I was really impressed with that win. And since then, Alabama's kind of faded. They don't play a lot of defense. All they do is chuck up threes, and it works. I mean, they score points. I'd be looking to their team total throughout this entire tournament because they can have a really bad first half and a great second half and score a lot of points. But I'm not as sold on Auburn now as I was, even though they play in the SEC, which is the best by far basketball conference in the country. Grant, isn't it weird, the SEC being a basketball conference?
Well, I think the SEC is a little overhyped. I don't think it's dominating a lot of the way a lot of people talk about it, but that's where the money is. So I really don't think it should come as a surprise. And there's actually a team in the SEC I want to talk about later. That's one of my upset picks team to watch that I think they're going on a run. And it's natural. It's the evolution. Football was the main thing. Football was always going to be addressed first. But when you have so much money going out, and you got the amount of money that the SEC in particular has, they're going to catch up to the field, especially in this NIL era.
You know what's crazy too? The ACC is faded outside of Duke. Like the ACC is not a competitive conference right now. So it's kind of mimicking what we're seeing in college football. But going back to Auburn, Grant, do you look at them as a serious contender? Or are you saying Duke's the team and that's the best 1 seed going into the tournament?
No, I mean, Auburn's absolutely a contender. You can look at your top 10 list and they're all contenders. It's about splitting hairs, looking at matchups. Who do you think is going to win? There are certain characteristics that I like about Auburn. For example, I like that they have some experience on their side. I think experience, as much as we want to talk about the flashy one and done guys, Cooper Flagg obviously being the guy there, although he might come back for a second year. Apparently, I don't blame him. Who wants to go play for the Wizards? Um, I like that Auburn has experience. They have the number one offense in the country. They still play defense. They're still intense on the glass. So yeah, Auburn's a great team.
My fear with Auburn, though, and it comes down to just history repeating itself. There's teams that can get over the hump and there are teams that can't get over the hump. And I love Bruce Pearl. I think he's a great coach. At the same time, too, though, he has not been good in the NCAA tournament. And this Auburn team this year is the most complete team they've had in years. But, they've been to the Elite Eight in 2019. They've been in the Final Four in 2019. Other than that, they have never been to a Final Four. They've been knocked out after the round of 32 in, 2022 and 2023. And, they've been in the NCAA tournament repeatedly since 2018, but it has not been a good postseason run for them. And that stuff matters too, because when things get hard in the NCAA tournament, same thing with Houston. I haven't seen a ton from them in the NCAA tournament. They've been big, overhyped team. Not overhyped, they just hadn't necessarily lived up to the hype in the tournament. So those are my two fears about looking at Houston and looking at Auburn. From a Florida perspective, kind of burst onto the scene. They've been good in the past, but this is the best Florida team we've seen in years. And I think they could be honestly the most complete team in the SEC right now.
Well, so I actually want to go back to Auburn real quick because I agree with everything you said there. I thought the Jabari Smith Jr. Auburn team was actually really going to make a run. And like you said, they just don't get it done in the postseason. It's a little different looking at colleges versus a professional team. Like we'll take the Boston Celtics, for example, because they're the defending champs, but Jason Tatum had been showing up in the conference finals since he was 19 years old. And it was the same core of players. It was the Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum pairing. Al Horford was there, fitting guys around him. It's like they're always losing in the second round. They're always losing in the conference finals. They can't get it done. It's different in college because a lot of these guys are one and dones. People are transferring in and out. People graduate. It's not quite the same. So I can't apply that same sort of logic to Auburn, but I also do agree with you. I think Bruce Pearl bears some culpability in that, and I want to see them get over the hump. Houston, I disagree with you here. I think this is different for Houston. They are now in a top conference. They went 19-1 during the regular season. They've won like 19 of their last 20 games. You look at some of their recent results just over the last month or so. They beat Kansas. They beat Arizona. They beat Iowa State. They beat Texas Tech. They're on a streak of wins right now. And the number one reason I think they're so different is this is not a defensive team. This is an excellent team that plays excellent defense, but they are number 4 in three-point shooting in the country. They shoot 39.7%. So in the event their defense can't stop a player or a team, they're not cooked like they were in years past. No, they are going to be just as hot on the perimeter as anybody in this tournament. And I think that's what sets them apart from years past.
Yeah, I mean, the past Houston teams have been based around defense. This team's more well-rounded, as you were saying. I just need to see them get over the hump again. Been to the Final Four in 2021, but been the NCAA tournament a lot and just have not made the deep runs. Couple runner-up back in the 80s. When I look at Houston, though, I love Kelvin Sampson. I love what he's been able to do. And the biggest thing that they do need is a great offensive showing. That's why offense is so important. I think we praise defense a lot throughout the year, but when it comes to the NCAA tournament, these aren't 7-game series. These are one night. So the teams that are hot from three or hot from the field, they have the better chance of winning. So defense does matter. Like for a St. John's, like they can play relentless defense, but there's going to be a night where the offense hurts them because someone's going to get hot across from them. If they're not cooking, that's going to be the issue. Looking at a St. John's team, Grant, Rick Pitino's got a lot of love this year. I mean, what he's done has been amazing. Last year, loses to Pace, actually, Division II school in an exhibition game. I found that out the other day. And then now they're favorites to win the Big East tournament. They won the Big East regular season title, probably going to be a high seed coming into this year's tournament. Do you think they can get to the Final Four?
I would be inclined to say more likely no than yes. And St. John's is Rick Pitino's done an incredible job. This is a season of success. I'm not at all trying to discredit them as a good basketball team, but it goes back to what you said. This is a tournament. A tournament is about a team that gets hot, and a team that gets hot is different from a team that consistently plays well. I think there's a solid floor on this St. John's team. I think they're a Sweet 16 floor probably most likely landing spot is in that Elite Eight, but they shoot 29% from three. This is not a great offense. You can be as disciplined as you want. You can execute on the defensive side as well as you want, and they give effort. They are fun to watch. They make defense fun. They're one of those teams, but they just don't have the offensive skill set necessary to go back at a team that is playing with life on the line and that is hot. And that's what concerns me about them.
Well, the best part about Rick Pitino is he's one of the only coaches, I think the only coach twice to go to the Final Four with a team that shoots under 31% from three. So he's done it before at Louisville. I'm not saying he can do it again, but when you look at their current bracketology seeding, and this is going to change. I mean, bracketology, they usually get the seeds right, Joe Lenardi, but the regions and the matchups are always going to be mixed here. But when you look at their path, they go UNC Wilmington, they'll win that game. Then they play Kansas, San Diego State, or Indiana. By the way, when you make teams play in that are like 12 seeds, it's the dumbest thing in the world. I've never seen something more stupid than making a 12 seed play in. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't mind the play-in system, but I also don't get like let's make it all 16 seeds. You're all fighting to be the 16.
Yeah, so they beat UNC Wilmington. I imagine they beat all three of those teams, whatever matchup we get. Then in the next weekend, you would start with probably Alabama. Now, that is a bad matchup for them. With that being said, Alabama plays absolutely no defense. So if Rick Pitino can scheme up something to contain them from three, I do think St. John's can be competitive in that game. And then they would ultimately get Houston in the Elite Eight. And while that is a tough matchup, I trust Rick Pitino to win one basketball game if they have to, even though they're not a good shooting team. So right now, I think if this was the region, I would feel comfortable with them getting to at least the Sweet 16. And if they got to the Elite Eight, I think anything could happen.
So looking at Ken Palm's numbers here, going back to, I believe since 2000, every national champion has been in the top 20 of offensive and defensive rating, aside from UConn. The year they were in 8th seed, I think that was the Shabazz Napier year.
Kemba.
Was it Kemba? Okay.
Yeah.
And St. John's this year, 3rd in defense, 66th in offense. It's just I don't see the path to a very deep run when you're that limited in what is the most important side of the game. We can say defense wins championships, and that's true in football. It's true in some sports, but you have to score. That's the way basketball goes. And it's different. In a football game, you could reasonably win a football game with 17 points. And in a basketball game, it's like you got to get to 60 or 70. You got to find consistent ways to score the ball. And I don't trust St. John's to do that if they were to run into a Houston, like you said.
I just trust the coaching, though. And I think this is the biggest thing. And it's probably why Dan Hurley one of the biggest reasons he chose to stay in college, too. It's like coaches are admired in college basketball. They're not admired in the NBA. Besides, like, we get the JJ Redick storyline, we get the Joe Mazzulla storyline, but like, who's even the coach of the Thunder?
Mark Daigneault.
All right, that's the guy who won Coach of the Year last year. Nobody's talking about him, right?
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. Coaching is so inflated in college basketball. It's so important. I'm not saying it's not important in the NBA. It obviously is. Great game plan from OKC against Boston, but when you look at coaching in college, these guys are put up on a pedestal, and Rick Pitino's been able to win all over the place. If he's done it in other places, he's taken Louisville to the Final Four when they've shot under 31% from three. Not saying history repeats itself, but it plays a big role. So schematically, I think they can do something to put themselves ahead.
Well, if we're talking about great coaches with bad shooting teams and histories of success in March Madness, how about the March man himself, Tom Izzo? What do you think of Michigan State in this tournament?
I love Michigan State to get to the Final Four. I absolutely love it.
Go ahead.
2 dark horses, St. John's, Michigan State. I don't believe in St. John's, but I'm going to buy into the Rick Pitino storyline. I like Izzo to get there. With that being said, Tom Izzo's been trashing the NCAA tournament as of late. Like, they are not even a second weekend team most of the time, but this is a really complete Michigan State team. Well-rounded. Like, the night that their top scorers aren't doing anything, the bench steps up, the secondary guys play well. It's a really good Michigan State team, depending on where they land up in the bracket. Right now, current bracketology has them against in the South, so they'd face Auburn in the Elite Eight ultimately. But based on their path, They'll beat Bryant. They're going to beat Mizzou or Baylor. I don't have any fears of them against Texas A&M in a Sweet 16 matchup. I think Texas A&M is trash. And then it'd be Auburn in the Elite Eight. It's a very doable path if this is where they landed.
Yeah, so if I'm looking for an upset team, I'm looking to Michigan State as well. When I say upset, I'm at Michigan State. First of all, they're playing very good basketball right now. Just recently, they're on a stretch where they have beaten Purdue, Michigan, Maryland, Wisconsin. Those are all top 16 teams or so conference opponents, and they beat Michigan twice actually. Also, if we go back to Ken Palm's rankings, keep in mind that whole top 20 thing. They're 5th in defense, 28th in offense. So they're not quite in the window, but they are very close. You're right. Tom Izzo and Michigan State teams have been wildly disappointing in recent years, but this is a guy who has won a national championship. His name is associated with the month of March for moments like these. Their defense is great. They have a lot of size. They're excellent when it comes to rebounding the ball. I think one of the most overlooked stats in playoff basketball, college and professional, is defensive rebounding. Don't give up second chance opportunities, and also don't foul, clean the glass, get the ball back on your side. Michigan State does that pretty well. So wouldn't take them to win it all, but that's a team that I do see making a run to the Final Four potentially based on how the bracket shapes up.
Yeah, and if they're in Auburn's region, that's not a great matchup, but I'd probably rather be in Auburn's region than Duke. And I'd rather be in Houston than Auburn's region, but that's just me. But when you look at Michigan State right now, ripping off quad A wins like it's nobody's business. And to top it off, I was blown away with how they came out against Michigan that final game of the season. I thought Michigan was going to compete with them. Michigan State had just won the Big Ten regular season title. That game was meaningless outside of a final game of the season. Seniors last time playing in a regular season matchup, and they just wiped the floor with Michigan. I was blown away. So that was the moment where I'm like, all right, this Michigan State team, not only are they good, but they're focused in these games that, really, not saying it doesn't mean anything. You're playing an in-state rival, but it's right after you won the Big Ten title, and there was absolutely no letdown. So I like them. I like St. John's to make a run, and I potentially, now this could be my hometown bias, but don't count out the Huskies, Grant. Don't count out the Huskies.
No, you can't count them out. I've found that whole story very interesting this year because Danny Hurley was starting to feel himself, and as he should have. He won back-to-back national championships, but there's the clip that went viral of him saying, "I'm the best coach in the country. Don't turn your back on me." That's a crazy thing to say at all. Like, you wouldn't even hear a basketball player. You wouldn't hear a player say, "I'm the best player in the world." You don't call that. So ego is a little out of control there, but still the smartest coach in college basketball, still an excellent coach. You heard him say in an interview that he has to coach this team differently than he had to coach UConn teams in years past. And I'm sure that's hard for him because he's so intense, so old school with his players. He wants to rough them up. And I think he's found that that's not the way to necessarily go about business here. UConn was disappointing early in the year, and you can look at their record now and say they were disappointing, but keep in mind, when they won that first championship of the first of the two in a row, they were a 4 seed. So it's not like they're not used to making runs from below. UConn, the Napier, the Kemba teams, they weren't always up there at the top of the list. This is a program and an institution that is just used to making runs from lower positions. And in my opinion, they have the smartest coach in the country who just won back-to-back national titles. So you would be crazy to count them out no matter how this tournament.
Well, everyone was saying that, Dan Hurley just can't coach when he doesn't have, all these NBA guys on the team. And the past 2 UConn teams were insane. The last one was insane. The year before, younger team, but still unbelievable. UConn was a specimen last year, and they don't have the same talent. They got a lot of good kids, though. Solo Ball, Liam McNeely. You have the experience with Alex Caravan. You got dudes on the team that can play a little bit. And I think the reason Dan Hurley, going back to the cockiness and all that, the way he is, how he is, it was just built in how he came up too. I know that his father, big time high school coach, but how his career went at Seton Hall. I don't know if you watched the 60 Minutes documentary the other night.
No, I didn't. I know his story, but I didn't see the 60 Minutes thing.
But they really went into like how his terrible college career impacted where he is today. He's like, I need to make up for everything I did in college. He's like, I can't look at myself in a St. John or not in a Seton Hall uniform It disturbs me to look at myself in a Seton Hall uniform. So he's like, everything that went wrong for me in college, being the other Hurley, like I need to prove it every single day that I go out there. So I think that's the edge that he coaches with. And UConn's going to have a tough time. I do expect them, and I know we're recording this a little earlier, I expect them to make a run in the Big East tournament. I think they should be, if they're not playing St. John's in the Big East championship game, it's a disappointment. And I do think they have a very realistic chance of winning the Big East, just because, as we were saying before, St. John's, one of these nights, their scoring is going to hurt them. And if they do that, they're going to get probably a little bit of a better seed in the NCAA tournament. But there's no reason that they're going to be an 8-9 matchup, win that. There's no reason they can't be a 1 seed. It's going to be difficult, but UConn has the big game experience. They have the big game coach. And don't get me wrong, any 1 seed that matches up with UConn, they're still going to be saying, we're playing UConn today. And that's a big mental advantage, I think, for the Huskies.
Can I give you a team that is much lower on the radar, has no chance of winning March Madness, but a team that we have not seen in the postseason, and I don't know how long, and a team that I think could actually go on a bit of a run, maybe a Sweet 16, maybe even Elite 8 team?
Let me guess. What conference are they in?
They're in the SEC.
How low are we talking? Really low?
Let me pull up the bracketology.
Kentucky.
They're about middle of the road.
So not Kentucky, lower than Kentucky. Vanderbilt?
I think Georgia could actually go on a run here. Now, I have some inside knowledge because my girlfriend is a Georgia alum, and her parents, also alumni, are just well connected there. But the coach that they hired a few years ago, it was basically like, look, we're tired of being the football school. Not that we don't want to win football championships every year, but that can't be the only feather in our cap. And they've done things like they hired Simone Biles as coach to coach their gymnastics team. And now their gymnastics team is out of control. But what we were saying at the beginning, SEC money is just permeating everywhere. And this Georgia basketball team is actually starting to pick its stuff up. They went on a run in the NIT last year. They're now currently 20-12 in the SEC. And if you look at some of their results, they've beaten Kentucky. They've beat Oklahoma. They have a ton of experience. Now, they lost a lot of the big SEC games, but they did beat Florida. The team you mentioned, they did beat Vanderbilt. They're coming into the postseason with a lot of experience against a very tough schedule. It's almost like what we said again about a team like an Ole Miss in years past in football, where it's like, yeah, they might have 4 or 5 losses, but they've played so many great teams that they would be better than a team from the SEC, a team from the Big 12. I feel like that's almost what you're getting with this Georgia team, just in basketball now instead of football.
And speaking of Georgia too, I think the biggest news coming out of Georgia lately, Grant, is that the Cavender twin and Carson Beck are no longer together. I don't know.
I saw the little clip on that. You want to explain?
I don't. Basically, we know Carson Beck loves the Snapchat. Like, that's just been his game. And you can't take the goats out of the love of what they do. Like, Carson Beck was passionate about Snapchat. So just because he gets a girlfriend does not mean he's going to stop Snapchatting. I watched a little bit of the video, but I didn't see the Snapchat that actually put him under. Did you? Was there?
So I don't know exactly what put him under, but I saw him saying that he and his girlfriend had literally just broken up or literally just gone on a break. And the video theorized that he was actually still on a trip with her because he was wearing a shirt that he had been wearing either in a TikTok or an Instagram post with her.
You can't do that, Carson Beck. I mean, like, if you're going to, I know you got the bag to go to Miami, but if you might as well stay with her. You might as well try not to break up with her if you're transferring to play football. That, like, I would have stayed in the SEC. I mean, the only reason he went to Miami, because Miami's not going to be great next year. The only reason he went to Miami is for the girlfriend and the bag.
and the money.
He got a ton of money. It was probably worth it. And he probably got to Miami and he's like looking around, did a little like summer camp or spring ball, I should say. And he's like going out a little bit. He's like, what the hell am I doing? So he had to pull the breakup card there.
When I was younger, how old was I? I was 19 years old. I worked at a store called Potomac River Running. It was like just your general running store. You go there, buy running shoes, gear, caffeine packets, that type of stuff. And my boss was actually a former Olympian. He was the manager of the store. He's now currently a coach at Hampton, mid distance coach. So shout out to Mo. But he was from Miami, born and raised in Miami. Again, successful athlete, Olympian. So people knew him down there, and he could have had privileges. It's a story about how he had to stay disciplined, and it taught him a lot in life. Blah 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 blah. But people were coming after him all the time, basically, because they knew he had some sort of clout. They knew that he had money, he had sponsorships, stuff like that. And he always told me, and I'm not saying this is true, but we worked together in Northern Virginia at the time, and he said, "You can go up and down the block. You find me a 10 out here, there are 4 in Miami." That's what he always said.
Yeah, I'm sure. Not that I've really been to Miami, but I'm sure he's not wrong. And the Cavender, Hannah or Haley, whatever one it was, I don't. It doesn't matter. Pretty girls, right? But I mean, Carson Beck, man, you're making whatever 6, 7, 8 million in NIL money. You're the head or the quarterback of the Miami Dolphin. I'm thinking Miami Dolphin. Miami Hurricanes early. Miami Hurricanes, and you're going to be a top pick first round probably in the draft next year if you continue to progress. Like, just he loves Snapchat. You can't take him away from his craft.
He's out of the SEC though. He no longer has to fulfill that SEC quarterback role. He should have left this in the past.
Well, yeah, this would have been the time to mature and go to the school your girlfriend's at. She's done though now, isn't she? Like this, didn't they go back for another season? Like they won't be there next year.
I think they're done.
I think they're playing right now, but they might be done. I don't know what Miami women's basketball is doing, but this has to be the last season because they took the year off, then they came back. So we'll see. But shout out Carson Beck.
Yeah, shout out to Carson Beck, I guess.
Got the bag.
You think they're going to get back together?
No.
I'm going to say they will. I think there will be a lot of online pressure and someone's going to give in. Maybe.
But with that being said, Carson Beck, I don't think Carson Beck's the most handsome guy in the world. Like he's not. And not saying like I'm not saying I'm a good looker or anything, but I don't look at Carson Beck and I'm like that's a ladies man. Like just face wise, like his Snapchat game's good. He's got an elite Snapchat game. But I don't look at him and say like, yeah, if we take away the football, I don't know what Carson Beck's hit rate is. He's probably not a 300 hitter. So, I mean, I don't think they get back together. I think he's going to have fun in Miami. I think he's going to have a good season. But I don't know if they get back together. Hear me out on this. Carson Beck gives me Draymond Green vibes. Have you ever seen the camera pan to Draymond when he's like, if he's on the bench and nobody's talking to him, he's just kind of sitting there? It looks like there are no thoughts. His mouth's a little open. It's like he's mouth breathing a little bit. And it's just the most blank stare into the universe you've ever seen. That's what Carson Beck gives me when he's not engaged. Even if you see him in the back of some of these videos with Haley, Hannah, Cavender, whoever it was, he's just standing there. It looks like the lights aren't on. I love Carson Beck. Like if I had to list my like top 3 quarterbacks in the country, my favorite dudes, just personality, playing style, Carson Beck was in that list last year for sure. Quinn's number 1. Then I like Carson Beck. And I don't even know who number 3 would be, but I loved Carson and Quinn. Like those are my guys. And Quinn's like the opposite of Carson Beck, just like all for the school, like team guy, doesn't say much. Not that Carson Beck said a lot, but doesn't say much, doesn't complain. Carson Beck, the sleeve really threw me off with him because he's not a sleeve guy, but he kind of looks like we did a whole breakdown on that when it happened. We went through every quarterback in the NFL and found out who had tattoos. Yeah, Carson Beck went got a little weird with the sleeve, but he kind of looks like Timmy, not Timmy from South Park. It might be a Timmy from South Park. That's what Carson Beck kind of looks like when things aren't all there with him. So, anyways, Georgia. Grant, Georgia's in the same bracket as they right now currently bracketology. They have them playing Houston. If they got through that first round matchup against an 8 seed, it could be Memphis, could be UConn. Right now, it's Memphis. Do you see them beating a 1 seed and shocking the world in the second round? Probably not. So my whole thing about them being a Sweet 16 Elite 8, if it breaks right, there's an emphasis on breaks right. They don't have that type of potential. But
a 2-3-4. I could see it happening just because they've played so many tough games, and some of them have been close, right? Like it was a 2-point game against Auburn when Auburn was number 1 in the country. 1-point game to Mississippi State. They've been close, and again, they did just recently beat Florida. It's not like they forgot about that. They're going to have a level of confidence, so I think they could make some noise, but no, they don't have the ceiling to beat the best teams.
They need to play an SEC school. That's the biggest thing that they need. They need that second big game needs to be against an SEC school. And I think Houston's a bad matchup for them. I think Alabama's not a great matchup for them, but if they were to, possibly move back a seed, if they were a 10 seed and they got to play a 2 against an SEC school like Alabama, that would really help them move on, because it's just teams you're familiar with. It's kind of like, we talk about division games in football. In the NFL, when you play a division game, it's going to be tighter. Bad division teams playing against good division teams are usually close games. It's just the way it is. So I'll keep an eye on Georgia there. But right now, Quinnipiac, my school, one of my schools, Quinnipiac could make a run and upset Georgia there pretty early. So
wait, who's the team that's going to the tournament with a losing record?
Did they win? Did Delaware win the other night? I wasn't even watching that.
I don't. What was it? Was it Saint Mary's?
St. Mary's was good.
Not St. Mary's. Saint somebody. I don't know. I forget who. I wish I could remember.
Delaware was like a really bad team this season, and then they ultimately lost UNC Wilmington, covered but lost to UNC Wilmington in their conference championship game. So that was the one that would have been the under 500 team.
So my first school that I went to, which I actually talked about on the podcast recently, Division III school, Mary Washington. I just saw this. They went like 11-14 or 11-16 or something like that in the regular season. They're currently in the Sweet 16 for the Division III bracket. I don't know how that even happens, but the boys are hot.
Do they play? I wonder how that works. Like, is it neutral site games for Division III? They should let people bet on it all.
I would guess it would be like how the women have it, where the first couple of rounds are hosted by the lower seed, and then it goes neutral at Sweet 16 or so.
Women's basketball, 16s playing ones in women's basketball. Like, that's not even. That's.
Can I say I like that? I like how they have it, though, that the lower seed hosts the first couple of games. I understand it makes it harder for upsets to happen, but it also does add to the atmosphere, kind of like we got in the college football playoff, and I kind of like it.
Grant. UConn is the favorite to win the women's national championship right now. Paige needs one. Like, I don't think she's that good until she gets a national championship. But honestly, UConn doesn't even have to open their eyes until the Elite Eight. Like, none of the top, the 18, there's 8 teams that can probably compete for a national championship. There's maybe 4 that can win it. They don't even have to blink till the Elite Eight in women's basketball. So it adds to the atmosphere, I guess, but there's never upsets in women's basketball early. They don't even list money lines.
Do they really not? I didn't know.
They don't. Like, UConn won't have a money line against whoever. They'll be like minus 40.5, 50.5.
Well, I mean, the older UConn teams before this whole NIL era, and also just when it wasn't as cool, when it wasn't as normal for women to go into basketball, the old UConn women's teams were just unfair. It was like, if they don't win the national championship 5 years in a row, that's a failure.
So I've been watching a lot more women's basketball lately because there is some betting value in it, I believe. So I was watching like Portland play. Portland played somebody the other night in their conference semifinal, and then I turned on UConn in the Big East Championship later. It's just it's a different class. And Portland's like a good mid-major team, but there is no chance mid-majors upset legitimate power conference teams in women's basketball. There's no chance the bottom of a conference upsets the top of the conference. I mean, UConn beat the second best team in the conference by 30 points the other night. So it's just a different ballgame, but I do like it. I don't think it would be good for men. There's too much money in it. That's the bottom line. It comes down to money. If the woman could play a regional and make money, they would do it. But women's basketball is growing. So shout out women's basketball.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it is 10 years from now, because there is more money. There's more eyes that are being brought to it. And so we'll see where it goes.
Did you see Angel Reese's comments?
Should we get into those?
I mean, we've talked a lot of brackets. So Angel Reese basically came out the other day and said that she's going to sit out. Did she say equal pay or close the pay gap?
She said
She
that
said
women
equal.
deserve to be paid the same as men in basketball.
Then Angel Reese proceeded to throw the ball off the backboard on an inbound right after that.
Yeah.
I love women's basketball. I think women's basketball is great. I think the 3-on-3 league is cool. Let's be real though. Like we gotta be real. We can't just talk out of our ass. Like that is talking out of our ass. That you get paid what you bring in everything you do. Women's basketball, like, and that's the thing too about Angel Reese. Like, if there was no Caitlin Clark, there is no Angel Reese. Like, we need to make that straight too. And I think that's the biggest reason she's got this chip on her shoulder. Like, she was the villain in the story, but Caitlin Clark was the one who drew all the attention. I forget who it was the other night, but they were talking about attendance for the Chicago Sky. It was like 9,000, 9,000, 8,000, 8,000. And then Caitlin Clark comes to town, it's like 17,000, right? They double the attendance when she comes in. So, yeah, I think that's a wild comment.
Angel played an important part of the story. I want to give her credit where I can, because I'm going to shit on her a little bit. She played the villain role great. She capitalized on it. Her part in that story helped drive the growth of women's basketball significantly. She helped Caitlin Clark get that huge shoe deal. She helped those games get all that viewership during March Madness. And in the WNBA, she's helped these games get more eyes on them. But like you said, Caitlin Clark sells out everywhere she goes. The Indiana Fever sell out everywhere they go. I remember before she'd even made her rookie debut, the Las Vegas Aces were talking about renting T-Mobile Arena for their game against the Fever specifically, just so they could accommodate the fans that want to come watch Caitlin Clark. She's a transformative player, and with the money and the eyes that are being brought to the sport, there will probably be more and more transformative players in the WNBA. The thing is, like you said, you get paid not equal, but you get paid based off of what you bring in. And right now, the WNBA has been a money losing league for the longest time. I think they still lost money last year, even though it was their best year ever. So until that turns around, you're not going to see a significant pay rise. And ultimately, I love basketball. I love basketball. I watch the WNBA all the time. I'm not discrediting anybody here. But with the men's game, what makes it so attractive to viewers is we watch professional sports to see people do things that we can't do. I'm not saying I could go beat Caitlin Clark or beat Angel Reese in a game of one-on-one, but I think I could score. I think I could stop some of their moves. And the moves they do are things I could do. I might not be able to do it at the same level, but stuff that I could go out and try to replicate. With the NBA, I'm never going to be 6'9", 250 pounds. I'm never going to be able to run as fast. Actually, that's not true. It's not true. I used to run fast a little bit, but they're going to be able to jump as high. I'm never going to shoot the ball like Steph. I'm never going to be able to dunk like Ja Morant. I'm never going to have Zion Williamson's body. It's things that are not attainable to me, and so that's why I want to watch it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I'm all for pushing for more rights and more viewership and everything. Like, that's one thing. But when we start talking equal pay, now the men get paid too much. I'll straight up say I feel like a supermax contract in the NBA is when you got bench players in the NBA making millions and millions of dollars, we got a little bit of an issue. I mean, they get paid what they bring in, but I think the NBA contracts are a little inflated, just based on other sports too, just relative to when you get what quarterback money is, what, a six man in the NBA, a really good six man.
No. Quarterback money is like your star NBA. It's close to the star NBA player, but it is still behind it.
It's still behind them, right? So,
and that's just quarterbacks too. Your top cornerback, your top defensive lineman, they're behind the NBA guys.
What DK Metcalf wanted $30 million a year, so that's half of a supermax contract, basically, right?
Yeah, less now.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I think throughout the men's game, and you got to pay a full team in football, so that's a different story. But going back to Angel Reese, this is just, it's a wild It's a wild statement to make. I don't know if she truly believes it. I don't know if she's saying it for pop. I don't know, but you can't say it, because in the end of the day, you get paid what you bring in. The WNBA is still not bringing in money, and whether they start bringing in money or not, they're never going to bring in what the NBA is going to bring in. There will never be a time when the WNBA grosses more than the NBA in our lifetime. It's not going to happen. So it's a wild comment. And it's one of the comments too that just causes more hate to the league, because after that we saw a barrage of clips, of just people shitting on Angel Reese, people shitting on the women's game, all from that statement. You don't make that statement, you continue to grow the game the right way.
Also, I want to see Angel Reese develop. I want to see her make it so that you become unignorable. Make it so that this money that you're talking about, and she deserves to be paid well. I'm not saying she doesn't, but make it so these millions, this generational wealth you're after comes and finds you. When I see clips of Angel Reese, and again, I watch the WNBA, I watch some of this stuff, so I've seen the regular games as well. But when you go online, it's Angel Reese said this on a podcast. Angel Reese missed this layup. Angel Reese threw it off the backboard. She was I was going to say a big man. Do you call him a big woman? She was a big who shot 39%, basically all of her shots coming around the rim. Get in the lab, improve your game, and start doing things that make it so it's like, oh, Angel Reese is playing, I got to watch that. That's how you get the money. You played a great role in a great story, but that's not where the journey ends. There needs to be more.
Yeah, and again, we can wrap this up, but I don't know why Caitlin Clark was the chosen one, but she was the chosen one. And the crazy thing about her is she's not on social. Like, she is, but she has a team running it. She's not posting consistently. She doesn't read comments. She doesn't make outlandish comments at all. She is as like just do it by the book as you get, and she's the chosen one. So maybe Angel Reese is doing these like outlandish comments, and it paints the game in the wrong light, because then after that we get the clips of Angel Reese, like the low tape. What do we call
Low
it?
lights.
Low lights, and it's just not good.
So. Yeah, I got nothing to add.
Well, we talked a lot of bracketology today. The bracket is going to be released Sunday, so stay tuned for a show coming on Tuesday. We'll be breaking down the entire tournament, giving our picks, looking at betting odds, all that good stuff. Very excited about that. But, off the top, to summarize, I'm high on Michigan State. I'm high on St. John's, and I think UConn can make a little bit of a run. And then obviously the 1 seeds are going to be in the mix.
Like Tanner said, the bracket will be out soon, and Tanner and I will be talking about it. So if you have not already, if you're at the end of this show and you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, don't know what you're doing, please hit that button so you're locked in for all of our upcoming content. Also, go check out the World Sports Network, WSN.com. If you're into sports betting at all, you want promo codes, you want news, you want picks, analysis, all that great stuff leading up to March Madness and beyond. That's going to do it for this episode of Ride the Line. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, jump in the comments, let us know which teams you're watching in March Madness. And until next time, we will catch you all in the next episode of Ride the Line.